General Yaakov Amidror, thank you very much for joining me.
I'm very happy to see you here.
We're looking at Iran and Israel, and it seems like Iran once again is looking for revenge against Israel for certain events, especially one that took place in Iran recently. Should Israel be concerned?
First of all, I think that Israel authorities, those who are responsible for security in the army and other institutions, their basic assumptions should be they should be aware. We cannot live in a world in which we can assume that the Iranians will do nothing after all the events in Iran. Will they do or not, I don't know. But the assumption should be that something will happen and they will try to retaliate on something that they think was done by Israel.
You know, you're very much experienced with your past within the Army intelligence and obviously in the Prime Minister's office. We've seen Iran trying to attack Israel by all means. I mean, from attacking embassies in South America to firing from Lebanon and from Syria. What should Israel expect currently?
I think that, first of all, we don't know. They have many tools and they don't hesitate to use them. The example of Argentina is a very good one. They went on Israeli embassy, on the Jewish center in Buenos Aires. So there are no limitations. They opened a Pandora box when they attacked pure civilian installation by cyber, something that civil countries do not do. So whatever they can, they will. It's not their intentions, it's their capabilities. And we should be very much aware to the fact that, yes, Israel is in a kind of a war under the radar with Iran, because we don't want them to have nuclear military capability. We don't want them to succeed to build the ring of fire around Israel, to build the capabilities on top of what they have in Lebanon, in Syria, in Western Iraq, and this attempt by the Iranians, we do whatever we can to stop or to contain. And we have to expect that one day they will retaliate.
You have no doubt that it's not a matter of will, it's only a matter of way. So
it's a matter of capabilities and our ability to contain them before they do it or during the operation. But they might succeed. I mean, there is no any guarantee that they will always fail.
Explain to me, please, the logic, because Iran has been suffering all across the board. Why opening a war against Israel? What's good in that for them?
It's a question that again and again have been asked by Western civilized people, which do not take seriously ideology, unlike the Iranians' leadership. Their ideology is very clear. They are committed themselves to this ideology, and part of this ideology is that the state of Israel should be destroyed one way or another.
So if we heard recently from Israeli statesmen saying that Iran is leaving Syria and gave up Syria, it's not in the cards.
It didn't happen, and I'm not sure that it can be happened without something bigger than just the operations of Israel, which are very important, by the way, limiting the capabilities of the Iranians. But to change the intentions of the Iranians, for that you need something which is in the political level, an agreement which will make Iran understand that there is no legitimacy to be in Syria. Now all the legitimate claims, they had been invited by the Syrian regime, and no one can say that they don't have legitimacy to be in Syria.
You've mentioned before their nuclear plans and Israel trying very hardly for the past couple of decades to stop their nuclear program and ambitions. Is it a success? Because we see over and over the Iranians trying to go back.
As one who was behind the first paper which had been sent to the Americans in '95, in which we told the Americans that we found the first signs of nuclear military project in Iran. And we made a calculation that before the end of the first decade of the 21st century, they will have it. Now we are in 2020 and they don't. So did we succeed to postpone it? No question. To delay it? No question. Do we have more time to prepare ourselves? The answer is yes. Did we succeed to stop them, that they will leave the project and will not invest in the project? The answer is no, we didn't succeed.
Is there a way to do it?
I thought that when they came to negotiate with the Americans, with the previous administration, they were desperate. They came on their knees to the negotiations. If the American negotiators were smarter than they had, much more could be achieved. Even if it's not total annihilation of the project, it could achieve something which is much, much better than the bad agreement.
For example?
For example, the Iranians allowed, according to the agreement, to continue the R&D of the new generation of centrifuges that will be 10 times faster than the previous one. Why should they have this right? The Iranians could continue to run cascades of centrifuges and to produce enriched uranium. The uranium was moved out of Iran, according to the agreement, but they have the capability to continue to learn, to enhance their capabilities, and to come back whenever they want.
So if we look prospectively to the future, and obviously one way or another, the Iranians will try to go back to something because the sanctions are crippling them. We see the economy, we see the coronavirus. What should Israel opt for? No agreement, an agreement, but a better one than the previous one?
An agreement which will prevent the Iranians from reaching the point in which they can have nuclear military capability is a good agreement. And it could be reached. I don't know if it will be possible to reach it in the future, but if something like that can be reached, from the Israeli point of view, it's a very good situation. We are not trigger-happy guys. We prefer that that will be solved by negotiations which will be ended with a good agreement. We achieved half the way. We brought the Iranians into the negotiation table, but the agreement was a very bad one.
As a veteran researcher, you read the reports coming out of Iran about that attack in Natanz, at the factory in which those centrifuges were built, tried, etc. What do you learn out of it?
I learned that first of all, they use the weak point of the agreement and they continue to make research and to enhance their capability to enrich uranium in the future. And so they are exploiting the weak points of the agreement. First. Second, that someone very smart understood where is the crucial point in which the agreement didn't cover the situation and decided to delay the project. It didn't stop the project, but it delayed the project. And the one who did it, I don't know how it was done, but the one who did it made a good job.
The damage is big, is vast?
I don't know, because here the details are important, but according to the reaction of the Iranians, the answer is yes.
So I go back to the beginning. It is such a punch in the stomach that they have to react because of the humiliation, because that's their war plan?
They don't have to. But those who are responsible for the security should take into consideration that they might. They don't have to. They can not react and nothing will happen. It will not collapse the regime in Tehran or so on. But they might think that this is one step too far and they might react, and we should prepare ourselves for such a situation because we don't know if they don't.
One more thing that we've seen last week is an attack apparently by Israel in Damascus International Airport, once again against against weapons which were transferred from Iran either to Syria or to Lebanon. It's not the first time. It has been done hundreds of times in the past few years. Is this war still effective?
Again, it's like the nuclear project. We cannot stop the Iranians. We cannot prevent them from continuing the efforts. But I don't know the numbers, but I will not be surprised if they succeed to do, 15% of what they had in mind. And the other 85, we succeeded to stop. It didn't stop the project. They will continue to invest. They will continue to bring weapon systems and people and try to build a ring of fire around Israel, which has two main pillars, one in Lebanon and one in Syria. But if you compare what they have in Lebanon, which we didn't stop them to build after 2006, and what they have today in Syria that they tried to build in the last, 5-6 years, you can see the difference. They don't have even tenths of what they have in Lebanon today in Syria.
And what are the chances that such an attack and the Iranian retaliation, which, as you said before, might succeed because, it's not a 100% guarantee, will deteriorate the area, Israel and Syria, or Israel and Lebanon, or Hezbollah, to a state of war?
I think because what we try to prevent them, their nuclear capability in Iran, and trying to prevent them from building the second pillar, which is crucial to building the ring of fire around Israel, we have to take the risk of a war. You cannot prevent such an effort by a country like Iran without being ready to take the risk of a war. And we should understand that it might happen. But we should be in a position that we are ready to pay the price. Otherwise, we will not succeed to stop the Iranians from building the second pillar on top of what they have in Lebanon, in Syria, or to make the Lebanese capability with the direct weapon systems much, much more dangerous to Israel. At the end of the day, if you want to prevent your enemy from having the upper hand at the end, building something that you cannot cope with, you have to take the risk. With no risks, there are no success operations.
General Yaakov Amidror, thank you very much for joining me.
You are most welcome.